Hello, Senator. Nice to see you. Happy Earth Day.
Lee, great to be with you and with your members. This is fun.
Yes, well, thank you. We really appreciate you doing this. You've been 8 years as governor and 8 years as senator, and you've been steadfast in making Maine a better place and everything you've done with environmental protection and land conservation and being an advocate for affordable health care. And I think in every element of how to make Maine better, you've been the guy who's been the champion. So we appreciate that.
Well, I've enjoyed working with you over the years. You and I go back at least 25 years, I think, Lee.
Yeah.
And a lot of water down the Penobscot since those days, but we're both keeping at it.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Senator. So the first question is about regional resiliency. And, with the paper mills and everything, from Bucksport to Lincoln to Millinocket and East Millinocket, there's been some tremendous efforts on their part. But the American Rescue Plan, which you champion, is a big part of our recovery now. Can you just talk about past resiliency and what are we doing now and how this whole plan is going to help everybody?
Well, I think the idea of the plan of the COVID relief bill last year, the CARES Act, and then what came afterwards, and then the American Rescue Plan, is basically to get us through this terrible pandemic period. And Lee, I can't imagine how bad it would have been had it not been for those stimulus checks, extended unemployment, PPP for our small businesses in Maine. Millions and millions of dollars have gone to small businesses. And the whole idea was to get us to the point where we can get back to something resembling normal. And as you know, the American Rescue Plan that passed about a month ago is really focused on supporting the businesses, but also states and localities. One of the things that I pushed for as we were considering that bill was that a significant part of that money go directly to towns, cities, and counties. And you're going to find pretty much every town in Maine is going to get an infusion of some very useful money for infrastructure projects, broadband projects, projects that they've been putting off for some time. And of course, that's going to have the secondary benefit of creating jobs and work in those communities. So, I hate to think where we'd be if we hadn't done it. And somebody said today, well, it's a lot of money and all of that, but we in 2009 we did a rescue plan that wasn't big enough, frankly, and the recession hung around for another 2 or 3 years. I really believe that if we can get COVID in the rearview mirror, and we've still got a ways to go, I understand that, but once we do that, I think the economy is going to snap back fast, and I think part of it is this support that we've been able to provide to towns, cities, businesses, individuals. In a whole lot of areas. So I'm feeling pretty good. I feel good about this summer, Lee. I think we're gonna have a big summer. Again, we've had this surge over the past month or so in Maine. It's disturbing, but once we get through that and increase our vaccination levels, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape.
Yes, well, we really appreciate you being a champion throughout the process. And I think what we're seeing with small businesses is it's made a difference to them. It's not only giving them hope, but it's giving them stability. And there's been so much uncertainty throughout this. And the same thing with affordable health care. You've championed that, and right. People need certainty. So we appreciate that.
Well, one of the pieces of the rescue plan that I'm most enthusiastic about, Lee, is there's a piece for broadband.
Yes.
That's going to bring over $100 million into Maine. And I consider broadband Maine's biggest infrastructure issue, particularly in areas like you serve, in the more rural areas outside of the metropolitan town centers. We've got a serious problem. And the pandemic really underlined it. Kids couldn't connect to their schools. Seniors couldn't connect to telehealth. People couldn't work from home, and broadband is really the key to that. And so, as I say, we're going to get a pretty good slug of money, and I think there's going to be, I'm quite sure actually, there'll be additional funds in the president's infrastructure bill that we're going to be looking at over the next couple of months. So the broadband money, I think, is especially good news for Maine.
Yes, very much so. And it's a priority for us as an organization, helping towns, and not only with education, but telemedicine, and just as an essential tool. When you were
Right.
governor and the laptop program came out, was broadband accessibility, was that an issue for the kids?
Well, network accessibility was, but we had something called the Maine School and Library Network. So every
Right,
school in Maine already had a good connection. So fortunately, that allowed the laptop project to just come in and be the natural extension of having that network. But now what we have is what I call the homework gap, where kids are at school and they have their good connection, and then they go home and they can't do their homework, and
right.
they can't reconnect. So that's where the broadband comes, and we want it to be competitive. We want it to be at reasonable costs, and because it's really the essential tool. It is the infrastructure of the 21st century. I mean, we got to still do roads and bridges and highways and rail, but broadband is Maine's biggest gap right now, and it's my highest priority in terms of bringing home what I think will be the most use to our people. Here's an idea for you, Lee, for your areas. I'd like to see Maine become the work at home state.
Yes,
In other words, to go to Amazon and say, look, you want 300 people, you don't have to build a building in Bangor or Portland. We'll give them to you in Piscataquis and Hancock and Washington County, scattered around. They got to have broadband, but they can do your work from home. And
right.
this is an opportunity to revitalize these small towns that have suffered, as you say, so much with the paper industry and the other changes.
Yeah, exactly. And new businesses, new people, they ask, how are the schools and how's the broadband accessibility? Those are the two top questions now.
That's it. That's it.
And the third big question, and it's come up in our proceedings, is transportation and the need for more public transportation.
Well, I got to tell you, there's a really interesting thing that just happened. Amtrak came out with a map of sort of their ambitions of where they want to expand and have their service. And there's a little dotted line from Brunswick to Rockland, which I think would be a very exciting addition. That's been talked about for some time, but this may actually happen, and that'll link the mid coast down through Brunswick into Portland and then to Boston and beyond. So that's one major infrastructure possibility. And then, we've got to keep the roads up. I mean, I don't have to tell people in Maine, especially this time of year, about potholes and frost heaves, and this is costing Maine people money.
It really is.
It costs them in car repairs and front end alignment and all of those kinds of things. And the truckers complained to me about it, and that's got to be part of our agenda.
Yes. And I think the extension of Amtrak is going to be wonderful. And if it happens, I will lead the effort for the Brunswick station to be named the Angus S. King station.
No. I don't want that. You don't have to do that, Lee. I appreciate it, but that's okay.
Well, you're right there in town. It would be easy. So,
well, I can tell you, I can walk to that station. I mean, it's pretty cool to be able to walk, get on the train, and go to Boston. Go to a Sox game. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, it really is. And just one other transportation related question with the ports, Sears Island, and we've got Eastport and Bar Harbor even, and rail. Any thoughts about better rail port connections?
Well, they're necessary, and we've just the Department of Transportation just in the last few years has improved the rail connection to the port in Portland, and Searsport and Eastport. That's got to be part of their future. That's where you talk to Pete Vigue, and he's got some great ideas about connecting to the center of the country. The other thing, Lee, and every now and then people say, "Why are you so interested in the Arctic?"
Yeah.
And the reason is that when trade opens up through the Arctic Ocean, which is only a matter of time,
right.
Ships are starting to go through now, and the route over the North Pole is something like 14 days shorter from Asia to Europe or the East Coast of the U.S. So that's going to be a major trade route. And guess what? You go through what's what they call the Northwest Passage or the northern route along Russia. One of the first ports you come to in the continental US are in Maine. And
Yes.
so I see this as an important part of the future of Eastport and Searsport, that there's a great potential there that we haven't fully realized.
And have we not connected as much with Maritime Canada that we should have also?
I've always thought that that was a natural connection. It's funny. People in Maine think of Nova Scotia as being way north.
Yeah, that's right.
Actually, Nova Scotia is due east of Bangor. If you
Right.
look at the map,
Yeah.
it comes down, around the Gulf of Maine. And I've always thought that better connections to the Maritimes was a real opportunity for Maine. But listen, Lee, we got to get the border open.
Yes.
I think that's going to be a big deal, as you know, for the communities along the border. And I work with the International Park at Campobello. And of course, the park is on Campobello Island, which is in Canada.
Right.
And you can't get across from Lubec. So once we get that opened up, I think that's going to be a big help as well.
That really will be great. And I think with the vaccinations and the distancing, I think we're getting there. You mentioned Campobello, but we've got Acadia National Park and we got Woods and Water and Baxter. And you can be chairman of the subcommittee. And what do you think the likelihood is? I can tell you up north, there's more support, growing support, that Woods and Water is a real valuable asset.
Well, I think it is, and I think it will be even more so. And of course, there's data, Lee, that the national park brand is very valuable. It attracts visitors, and of course, it's now a national monument. That's good. Visitation was growing substantially until COVID, and I think it's going to continue to grow. What I'm doing, Lee, is listening. I want to hear from the region. I want the thoughts from the people up there about, how they like the way it's going and what their thoughts are on whether it should be converted to a national park. I think in terms of a practical effect on the region, it would be pretty much positive. I think it would bring more people into the region. And as you know, there's already some pretty exciting growth up there. People are investing again. And we've got some really neat opportunities for Millinocket. East Millinocket is taking over the land there. I've been in touch with Mike Michaud up there. So I'm optimistic about the Katahdin region. You can't replace those thousands of good paper mill jobs, but some good things are happening. I think the mood is very positive.
It really is, and you can feel the momentum. And it's with you saying you like to listen reminds me, before you announced to run for governor, I was always struck at going to meetings, either in Augusta or someplace, and you'd sit way in the back and I'd watch you listening. And I remember thinking, that's pretty good. So so I noticed that.
I've become sort of famous in Washington to be the last guy to leave the hearing. Frankly, the hearings in the Senate are my favorite part of the job because it's how I learn the most.
Yes.
And so I ask my questions, but I also like to stay around and listen to my colleagues' questions. And I have a term somebody mentioned, Lee, that I really like: eloquent listening.
I like that.
Eloquent listening. And, I think that's part of what the people of Maine want me to do.
We really do, and I appreciate that. So the last question, Senator, has to do with climate resiliency. We had our friend Hannah Pingree do a presentation at the last meeting just to talk about the efforts they're making in the Office of Innovation. And, one of the battles has been not only to increase awareness, but to build acceptance that this is an issue. But I think we're gaining some momentum. So can you talk a little bit about how Maine can take advantage of climate resiliency?
Well, I think for one example is offshore wind, where there's huge energy potential, and there's some controversy, as you know, with the lobster industry. But I think that can be negotiated. It's a big ocean out there, and I think I hope that the lobstermen and those who are interested in developing offshore wind can work that out, because we can do both. And the offshore wind industry has tremendous potential, not only for energy, but for jobs,
Right.
for service jobs, construction jobs. And of course, the University of Maine has been deeply involved in the technology of that. And they're working on basically a pilot project, a full scale project in the Gulf of Maine. So that's got to be part of it. And you don't have to drive very far around Maine to see what's happening with solar.
Right.
I mean, everywhere you go, there are these very large solar installations, and that's definitely part of our energy future. Again, talking about geography, people think about we're so far north, but if you draw a line of latitude around the Earth, we're the same latitude as southern France, northern Italy. We think of England as being to the east. Actually, England's quite a bit to the north. They're equivalent to Hudson Bay, but we have a good solar resource, and we're seeing it developed, and that's going to be part of our energy future as well. So I think and look, many people I talk to in Maine, like I mentioned, lobstermen, they know that something's happening. They see the effects. They see the migration of the lobsters. They see different species. I talked to a guy that caught a seahorse in his lobster trap. I mean, you don't see that in Maine every day. And the foresters are seeing different bugs and different tree species. So it's definitely happening. I mean, there's just no question about that. And the question is, how do we adapt to it? And frankly, there may be ways that we can take advantage of it that would be helpful to the state. So I'm worried about sea level rise, particularly some of the low-lying areas of the state. But again, I think the Chinese word for crisis is two characters, which one means danger and the other means opportunity.
Wow.
Isn't that fascinating?
Perfect.
And I think we need to think about things not only as dangerous, but as an opportunity, and try to be sure that we're leading, which Maine can do. That's our motto.
Exactly.
And we can lead on some of these new technologies and really make a difference for Maine and the whole country. We can be an example. And I got to tell you, when I'm in Washington, people really, really like the idea of Maine. And I'll end with one story, Lee. Susan Collins and I are both on the Intelligence Committee. And one day she was advocating for an amendment that she had on the committee. The committee meetings are generally classified, so they're closed to the public. So she's talking, and sitting next to me is Martin Heinrich, who's a senator from New Mexico.
Right.
And he leaned over to me in the middle of Susan's presentation and said, "Is there something in the water in Maine that gives people common sense?"
Yeah.
Isn't that terrific?
That's perfect.
I mean, that was a compliment. It was a compliment to Susan and I, but really it was a compliment to Maine.
I think it's true.
That's what we're trying to do down there.
Oh, very good. And Senator, I just want to thank you, Bonnie down in York County, Chris Rector, Adam, and especially—
Aren't they the best? They're the best.
But you know who's the best of them all? Who's here today at this session? Edie Smith.
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, Lee, I'm going to share with you and with your members my secret of leadership. It's very simple. Hire good people and take credit for what they do. It's worked for me for 25 years.
Keep doing it. You got great people doing great stuff. So thank you so much, Senator. It's wonderful to see you, and we really notice and appreciate everything you're doing.
Well, you're doing great work at the commission, and just let me know when I can be of help. Check in with Edie. She can reach me any time. So great to see you, Lee.
You too. Bye, Senator.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.